Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to edit profiles and create settings for the Creatr software by Materialize. There are 5 basic settings and I'm just going to run through them all. They are pretty advanced and you can do a lot of cool stuff with them. So the first is the machine settings, and it has just some basic information about the machine. The nozzle calibrated wire width, which is 0.35 on the HS. And then it has some custom codes. We use the normal start code of the Creatr software, but we have a custom stop code implemented. These just get updated with the update profile that I've shown in the last video. We also have a custom tool change code that retracts and extrudes during tool changes. And here you can also input the speed on which the printer moves while not printing. It's called the jump speed. Some basic settings, but you do need to know some basic G code if you want to edit these custom codes. So the next settings is slicing. The slicing settings, there are 4 profiles created by us. These are just the standard profiles ranging from rough, so that's 200 microns, to fine, 100 microns, a standard one in between, 150 microns, and then we also have a detailed version of 50 microns. As you can see, these settings are grayed out. Actually, all the OEM settings that are shown here are not editable. But we can create a new one by pressing the plus button. We'll create a copy here, and we can name this and we can change it. So for example, we want an extra rough one that goes on 300 microns. We can create it just like this, and here we can add it. This works the same for each of the settings. So slicing only has 2 options, which is layer thickness and border accuracy. Border accuracy, if you really want more information on that, there's a great explanation in the manual, and you can download the manual from our website. The next setting is the material. We have 2 basic settings for ABS and for PLA, and again I can't change these. So I'm going to create a copy of the PLA one because I might want to change something. I'm going to rename it to PLA PIM because it's my setting. So I'm just going to run through all the options. First of all, it is the extrusion temperature. It's set to 210 right now, and that is our basic setting. And it has the master extrusion factor. It's 100%, that's what the machine is calibrated on. The print speed is pretty fast, and it's 250 millimeters per second. I'm going to lower this one because I'm going to use this setting for some smaller prints. So I'm going to put it to 150. I'm just going to add to the name that it's going to be a small print setting. The next settings is the fan control, and you can add and remove data points on which to enable the fan. So the first layers, it is all procentual based, and we don't want the fan on the first layers because we want to adhere it to the bed. So the fan is off at the first layers, and then at 3% it's on 60%, and then on 5% it's on 100%. This fan speed. So that's pretty easy to understand, I would think, and we can of course maybe change this to 1% if we want to have the fan on earlier. So the next setting is the bed temperature. Again, it works with data points. So for PLA we normally use the bed at 45 degrees at the start for better adhesion. So it's set on 45 for the 0%, and of course you want to wait on the temperature, so this one is ticked. And then at 45% we turn off the bed. Actually, for this profile I'm just going to say that already at 10% I want to turn off the bed. So I've changed that right now. And if I want to have more, I can always add more data points, just like so. But I don't want to right now, so I'm going to remove this one again. The next setting is going to be hopping. Hopping is also called vertical lift in some slicing software. It is how the bed moves when the printer does a retraction movement. It really enables for better, smaller prints. So it's enabled, and its retracting distance is around 150 microns. It's pretty fast, and the threshold is set to 8 millimeters. Well, I think that's for smaller prints a little bit big, so I'm going to pull that down to 2 millimeters. It will do a little bit more of Z movements, but I think for smaller prints that is a good option. So the next one is going to be retraction. This is of course extrusion retraction. We have a Bowden system, and retraction is very important. These settings are completely tuned to the HS, so I'm not going to change those all. And then there's a really interesting new setting, and it's called the idle override. And as you can see, you have some more information about each setting if you hover over the settings. Idle override is for dual extrusion prints, and you can enable it. And what it does is that it will retract some of the filament, and then it will lower the temperature of the nozzle. So if you change nozzle, it will retract some and it will lower to your idle temperature. This way you won't have that much chance on clogging during a dual extrusion. It needs some tweaking for each different print, but it is a very useful, especially with big prints that are dual extrusion. I'm going to disable it right now because I don't need this. So that is the material settings, and to conclude the material settings, these are leading, so the master extrusion factor and, for example, the speed are leading for all other settings that I will go through. Okay, the next setting that I'm going to discuss is the build strategy. Again, I'm going to copy one of the OEM settings so I can change them and show you them. I'm going to rename it to my own strategy, just so I know that I can find it again. So the first settings are the contours, and the contours are also known as outlines. And our basic settings is that we have 3 contours, and we have a tweaked overlap of the contours that is perfect for the HS. Then the next setting is if you want to print the contour first or the infill, and I want to have the contour first, so we say before infill. So the offset is the distance between the contours, and actually I want them to touch, just touch, so 100% is the correct value here. And then the hatching order, there are 2 options, first the inner and then the outside, or the other way around. For smaller objects I like to print the inner first, so I'm going to select that. And then for the contours I have a print speed factor of 20%, so it will go a lot slower than a normal speed because I want a great finish on my contours. And also the extrusion factor is just normal, 100%. So that is the first option. And then the next option is upskin. There are 2 settings, upskin and downskin, in the Creatr software, and these are based on faces which are upward facing or downward facing. Some could call it top layers and bottom layers, but it's a little bit more advanced than that. So I'm going to run through the upskin first. So upskin, we want 3 layers on top of each other, and here the line distance is the distance between the upskin hatching, which is tweaked to a 90% for DHS. And then the angle on which it prints, it's 45 degrees, so that's the top layer infill, and the next layer will be 90 degrees incremented, so it will have two 45 degrees layers on top of each other. And also we want to print the upskin pretty slow, so we have 20% of the basic master speed, and the extrusion factor is just normal 100%. So just as the upskin, we have a setting and it's called the downskin, and that can also be explained as the downward facing layers or the bottom layers. So we want 2 bottom layers, 2 downskins, and actually the rest of the settings here are exactly the same as the upskin, which is tweaked and perfectly okay for DHS. So the next one is a known one, and that's called the infill. And infill depicts on how the model is filled with a pattern, a specific pattern. So I can have several different infill methods: hexagons, squares, bricks, and stripe. If you want to see some examples of all these different kind of infills, you can download the manual. It has a lot of information about the software, but also about the kind of infills. The density of the infill, it's a small object, so I'm going to go with around 25%. And again, the angle on which the infill is placed is minus 45 degrees, and the next layer will be 90 increment. So again, they will be placed on top of each other. Print speed factor around 20%, and I normally want a little bit more extrusion in my infill. That's a personal preference, so I'm just gonna put in 105% here. That is the infill option. The next option is the first layer override. As we all know, the first layer is a very important layer, so we have some specific settings for this layer. Well, we have again number of layers 2. Actually, I'm going to create 3 layers. The thickness is just normal thickness. The speed factor is at the moment 70, but I really want to turn it down. I'm going to go for 30. And the extrusion factor was set to 105, and we're just going to keep it that way. And then the final one from the build strategy is an auxiliary structure, and this structure is really important for dual printing. It will create an extra pillar where the nozzles can be wiped, and this will create a nicer model and a less oozing or more less blobs of the different nozzle on the model. At the moment I want this disabled. So this was the build strategy. So the final strategy I'm going to talk about is the support strategy, and in this strategy we can input supports, raft, and a skirt. So I'm going to copy one of the OEM profiles and rename it to my own profile so I can find it again later. And the first setting is about the supports. I want to add support for this model, so I have it enabled. And I want my support to have a border, so I have that enabled too. The Z offset is the extra distance that 2 layers of support will have, but I actually want the support to be right on top of each other, so that's set to 0. The line angle, that is the angle that support is printed in relationship to the x-axis, and I want it to be completely the same as the x-axis, so it is a 0 degrees angle. Line distance, the distance between two lines on the same layer. This depicts the density of the support. So in this settings there are 4 millimeters apart, which is a good setting. I can also make it a lot denser by, for example, put them 2 millimeters apart. But that will be good for downskin quality, but probably a lot worse for removal. So I will put it back to 4. X and Y extension. This setting shows on how far the support will go beyond the actual boundary of the model. It is set to half millimeter, which gives good quality improvements. The next one is distance to part. This setting is set on the actual distance to the part. If you want some more information on this, you can go to the manual. You can download that from the website. The closer this will be to 0, the harder it will be to remove. So it's set to 0.7 right now, and I will keep it at that. So the self-supporting angle, that is a well-known angle in the 3D printing industry, and for our printer we normally use between the 30 and 45 degrees. I'm going to keep it at 30 to reduce the amount of support that I need. I want my support to print pretty slow, so it's set at 25% of the master extrusion speed, which is of course set in the material settings that we've shown at the start of this video. And I want just a normal extrusion factor. So these are all the settings of the supports. But then there's an extra setting that is specific for the Creatr software, and it's called the roof. A roof is an extra couple of layers at the top of the support that will help increase the quality of the downskin underneath the support, or actually above the support. So I really want to enable this roof, and the gap is the amount of layer space between this roof and the actual model. 1 or 2 is normally a good setting. 0 layers will mean that the support roof will be exactly meshed together with the actual model, so it would be hard to remove. So a gap of 2 layers is a good setting. Then I want to have around two layers of roof, so I have a little bit of amount of plastic on which I can build my downskin on. And again, the line distance of this roof is 0.4 millimeters. Set offset, number of layers. The Z offset is set to minus 0.1, but I actually want it just to be 0. That is the distance again between the layers of the roof. I want them to be just on top of each other. Print speed factor, again, percentage of the basic print speed, and the extrusion factor set a little bit lower, but I want it at 100%, so I'm just going to put that at 100%. So this is the roof setting, and it really enables to have great downskin quality on support, on models that need support. The next option is going to be a raft. The raft option is also well known in the 3D printing world, and it is to have some better adhesive to the bed for difficult models. So I'm just clicked it to enable it. The number of following layers is it will print a base layer and then X amount of next layers, and that's called the following layers. And it's set to 2 right now, but I want a little bit of a bigger raft, so I'm going to set it to 3. Final raft layer temperature Just going to keep it 100%. I'm just going to keep my temperature stable during the whole print. And this is the extra distance to the part, so that's the distance between the raft and the part. It is set to 200 microns right now. I want it a little bit less because I want to increase the quality of my downskin. So I'm setting it to 100 microns. Then the next setting is aimed to the base layer, and the layer thickness is going to be 0.2 millimeters, so 200 microns. Add a little bit more. I like a thick raft, so I'm going to add 50 microns. So I set it to 250 microns. And the line angle of the base layer is going to be 45 degrees. And this is again in relationship to the x-axis. Line distance, so this is the density, same as the support, but as you can see the raft has a bigger density, so the line distance is only 2 millimeters. Print speed factor, it's okay to print slower, but it doesn't have to be that slow, so 60% is okay. And I want to extrude a lot for a really sturdy raft. It's set to 150, and that is a good setting. So I'm going to keep it at 150. The next settings are aimed to the following layers, so that those are the layers on top of the base layer. I'm going to keep those at 200 microns. I'm going to have the angle exactly opposite of the angle of the base layer. And then I'm going to have even more dense layers, so the line distance of 1 millimeter, and the print speed factor and extrusion factor are going to be the same as they were, so 60% and 100% for the extrusion factor. So this is the raft setting. And then last but certainly not least, we're having the skirt setting. So for this one I'm going to disable the raft really quickly and just keep the skirt on. It is enabled. I want it to be printing at around 60%, maybe even slower, so I can adjust maybe the calibration of the bed during the skirt. Extrusion factor 100%, that is okay, and I want it around 15 millimeters as offset for my model. So these are all the settings for the support strategy. And actually we've come to a conclusion of all the settings of the profiles. As you can see, there are a lot of advanced settings which can use a lot of tweaks, but all these OEM settings that are in here, which you can update with this update profile button, are tweaks to the Creatr HS. Thank you for watching this video. If you need any more information, please visit our website at lpfrd.com.